All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Rowan Neufeld. I'm the events coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. From this end, we're streaming live from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Plains Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota. Treaty 6 is also the homeland of the Métis Nation, one of Saskatchewan's founding peoples. I'm so pleased you're joining us tonight for the virtual launch of Only If We're Caught by Theressa Slind. So thank you, Theressa, for being here tonight. Thanks as well to our guest host, Leona Theis. I'd also like to extend our, hi Theressa, extend our thanks to Thistledown Press for working with us on tonight's launch. And Thistledown Press would like to thank Sask Arts, the Canada Council for the Arts, and the Government of Canada for its publishing program. Before I introduce our host for the evening, I have a couple Zoom housekeeping items. We've enabled live auto captions tonight, which you can access by clicking the live transcript button along the bottom of your screen. And then there is also a Q&A button. So if you have questions for Theressa, feel free to submit them using the Q&A button, and we'll have some time for those questions later on in the evening. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to introduce our guest host for tonight, Leona Theis. Leona's recent novel and stories, If Sylvie Had 9 Lives, won the Saskatchewan Book Award for fiction and the High Plains Book Award for short stories. Her earlier books are the story collection Sightlines, winner of 2 Saskatchewan Book Awards, and the novel The Art of Salvage. So welcome, Leona. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Rowan, and welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to be here tonight in conversation with Theressa Slind to talk about this fantastic, stellar collection of short stories and to listen to her read from them. Just a few minutes, just a few words about how the evening is going to go before we get started with those readings and conversation. The first part of the evening, Theressa and I are going to have some conversation and she'll read some selections from the collection. And then at the end, we will get to some questions that we hope the audience will be writing into the Q&A box. And it helps us keep track if you put your comments in the chat box, please, and your questions in the Q&A box. And we do welcome your questions, so type them in at any time and we'll try to get to them before the end, or at least some of them. I have some questions. I'm so curious about so many things about Theresa's writing process and how she came to these stories. It was welcome news to me when I found out that Thistledown was publishing this collection. I had known for some time that in addition to being a librarian, Theressa was also writing short stories. And a couple of years ago, I started to see them show up in magazines like the New Quarterly and the Malahat Review. And they were so smart and original and layered, and I wanted to read more. So now I have more. She has delivered us more in the form of an undertaker who's enthralled to ghosts, a humanoid who loves wine, and also just ordinary folks who are trying to find their way through grief and love and parenthood, and all that with some laugh out loud moments along the way. Theressa grew up on a grain farm, I believe, in northeastern Saskatchewan, so she also knows how to write about rural and small town settings. She lives in Saskatoon with her husband and daughter. Her stories appear in the best magazines, including Prism International and Grain Magazine. Welcome, Theressa. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say and what you're going to read for us.
Thanks, Leona. That was a really nice introduction. I'd like to thank a few people at the beginning here. Thank you to Rowan and McNally Robinson, of course, for hosting this book launch. Thank you to Leona Theis And if you haven't read her most recent book, If Sylvie Had 9 Lives, please do. It is inventive and cool and really, really good.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Leona. I'll thank Thistledown Press as well. I'm so pleased to have the book published. Liz Phillips, Carolyn Walker, Kate O'Gorman, and June Lee, thank you so much for your help. I'll thank the brilliant editor of the book, Michael Kenyon, super smart. And the book designer, holy cow, Natalie Olson from Kiss Cut Designs. Isn't it just beautiful? I just love it so much. I love the spine. I love the back, front, whoops. And interestingly, Leona, right? She also designed your book? Yeah. Thank you also to all the friends and family who are attending today, and the writing community too. You've all been so supportive and happy for me, genuinely thrilled for me, and I just love it. It's so nice. Okay, but maybe I'll read a little bit, Leona, and then we can talk for a little bit. So I'm going to read from, no, I've decided already. I'm not just deciding right now. I'm going to read the first little bit of the first story, and it's called Their Fever Dreams Were Child Drawings. And here we go. But oh, sweetness. The hallway where she waits in her wheelchair is painted the color of cookie dough, which she used to eat by the spoonful. Her weakness for baking had softened a sturdy farm wife frame. She used to take up more space, but her current bird lightness, her porous boned spine curling in on itself as if to tuck beak under wing for sleep, has its advantages. She sees things differently, sideways, and memories lend texture. So the first sight of the little girl in William's old room is paired with the smell and taste of brown sugar, butter, and vanilla. The girl is lying on her belly at the foot of William's old bed, concentrating on a drawing. Margaret waits for William out of habit alone. He died last week and she misses his teasing. Maggie, darling, let me get a word in, will you? Because Parkinson's has left her speechless. Or, giving me the silent treatment again, I see. The other Aspen Grove residents thought of them as going steady. The room's new occupant is Carolyn, according to the nameplate beside the doorway. In a niche below the nameplate is a soapstone carving of a whale. William called it his personality niche, and only last week it was bursting with tamer pieces from his collection of 17th century Japanese erotica. She worried over this affectation during her first few months at Aspen Grove, obsessing over which of her knickknacks really said Margaret. She gave up after watching her temporary neighbor's rotating display of gewgaws. Her personality niche is one anonymous crypt for one dead fly. The girl looks up at her and trails snot along her sleeve. She has dark hair and pillow fuzz braids and big brown eyes. How old would she be? Margaret waves. The girl holds up 4 fingers and says, actually 4.5. Having reached her 93rd year, Margaret is not surprised. This is how it is now, is her reaction to everything from cell phones to the accountant's neck tattoo to telepathic children. What's that, Piper? A woman's voice from deeper in the room, hidden from view. Piper as a proper name is unfamiliar to Margaret, but she likes it. Girl Piper, Sandpiper, Pied Piper, Icing Piper, sweetness. I wasn't talking to you, Mama. Girl Piper wriggles into a cross-legged position. I was talking to Margaret. Piper points. Mama pokes her head around the doorway, offers a rigid smile. We'll let Nana sleep, says Mama to Piper. Nice to let Caroline sleep, thinks Margaret. There are good and natural reasons for their collective fatigue. Practice for the big sleep, for one. Mama, what's the big sleep? It sounds more fun than my little sleeps. Quit talking, silly Piper. Let's find a playground. Yay. Piper bunny hops out of the room and holds onto the wheelchair. You're funny, she whispers. Margaret cups her ear, trapping the child's warm breath, as sideways she watches the pair leave. Who is this Piper? Compensation for losing William? Life's answer for overstaying its welcome? I know it's miserable, Margaret. Here, take this. Now quit whining. She lifts her bird legs off their footrests and lets her heavy white sneakers drop to the floor with a squeak. She paddles away, gliding along the shimmering, polished floor as silent as a swan, or maybe a duck or goose. Mustn't let life's gifts go to one's head. I'll leave that there for now.
Thanks, Theresa. That's the first story, a great story and a great title, by the way. Their fever dreams were child drawings, right? It takes us into some beautifully complicated moments about what it is, about aging, but also about what it is to be human, really, and looking back on a life. It lands with such grace at the end too. It's a beautiful grace in the ending, and it made me want to keep on reading. And so I did keep on reading, and I was no less impressed with the stories that followed. But what I was also impressed with was the range of sensibilities that you show as a storyteller. You can swing from satire in one story to a touching story about a man curled around the thistle of his grief. So beautiful use of language too. You have stories that are full of wisecracking, you have satire, you have a story called Crypsis that has a tone of panic held at bay, another story that has frustration held at bay, at least for a while. So I wonder if you can talk about the decisions you make about tone and mood when you're writing a story. Is it organic or intentional? Does it go back and forth? Or is it something that happens in revision? You can take that any direction you would like to, Theresa.
I think those choices are pretty intuitive, Leona. And it gets fine-tuned in revision. I think you will recognize that as well. The revision process is so important. My natural tone or mode, I think, would be to crack jokes just constantly. And so that doesn't necessarily make for a good story. So I have to throw a few more or other elements in there. I think the tone in the book ranges from, the tones in the book range from like humorous, I wrote them down here, humorous, pessimistic, sarcastic, melancholic, curious, wild, sensitive, just to get an idea of thinking about tone. And I realized that those descriptors kind of describe me or how I think about myself. And so it's interesting how I think in that way, tone is quite, it follows me and what I do and what I think, actually. I don't know, it seems pretty intuitive. And in terms of the order of the stories, like tone leading from one to the other, I don't have a good sense of how that works yet. I had help putting them in the right order from Michael Kenyon, the editor. And the first story I had is the same, but my original order was, I tried to, variety was my central concept, and that didn't work out very well. So Michael helped me put them in an order that I think is like, it just seemed to flow after he suggested it. I made one more suggestion of changing one story and moving it somewhere else, and he liked that. And then it just worked. And I have to think more about that, Leona, in the future, because indeed I felt the tone is quite intuitive.
Well, if it's working for you.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, I guess. There. Is that a good answer, Leona? Is that enough?
It's a great answer. I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Do you ever get partway through a story and realize that its tone is getting away on you? It's not how you want it to sound?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. That happens all the time. And often it's where I start out quite jokey, and then it just gets frivolous and silly. And that's not what I want at all.
Uh-huh.
That's not what I like to read necessarily. I do love reading humorous fiction, but I like some depth there too. Sometimes I write a whole draft and the ending surprises me a little bit, and I have to, well, not sometimes, always the ending I find surprising because I don't have it worked out from start to finish when I start.
Mm-hmm.
Words and concepts suggest new words and concepts and sentences.
Yes. Yes.
And so
good.
I end somewhere and suddenly I have to rework the whole beginning, middle, and almost end, right? So yeah.
Well, it makes for a wonderful variety in the collection, and it really shows your range. Do you have a different story with a different tone that you'd like to read us something from now?
Sure, thanks, Leona. I'll read from a story called Desire Lines, near the end. Desire Lines. When Sean first arrived to clear out the late Jake Bamford's house, it stank. Under the mice's high ammonia tang, a middle sea of disintegrating newsprint played below his nose. But on day 4 of the job, as he eats his meatball sandwich at the yellow formica table in the kitchen, he doesn't notice the smells. Either he's cleaned sufficiently or he's gotten used to them. A mouse skitters in his periphery, scurrying along their old trails. The mice are exposed. No more cozy burrows and mountains of newspapers, just wide open, eviscerating space. He's caught at least 40 so far in snap traps he set up along their obsessive and self-destructive desire lines. Stupid mice. In his junk hauling business, he's encountered hoarding before. This drawer is for empty tape dispensers. That shelf is where you keep the broken clock radios. This stairwell is for 20 years worth of weekly Maclean's magazines. The Formica table was, only a few days ago, piled high, and apart from the one unsettling exception in the den, every surface in the house was similarly swamped. No, it's not the hoarding that surprises. It's that he kind of likes this guy. Jake Bamford was not your average hoarder. He had discernment. Consider the locked library upstairs. Left without a key, he took an axe to the door that morning to find an avalanche of good taste behind it. Homer, Tolstoy, Proust, Austen, Borges, Joyce, Hemingway, Carver, Mantell, Monroe, numerous editions of Shakespeare. Bamford's daughter will probably want the books. Her name is Beatrice, same as his own daughter, Little B, who is 12 and perfect. But if not, he might add them to his own collection, if Tina lets him. But having recently bought out his brother, he's got the old barn and farmhouse for storage, so maybe it's not so much a matter of seeking permission as doing what he pleases. It's Thursday. Tomorrow morning, the cleaners come. Saturday's the open house. He's cleared out the basement, main floor, stairs, bathrooms, and half the library, and has the rest of the second floor to finish today. On Monday, he took stock and decided to leave the master bedroom and den for last. Bedrooms were almost always his least favorite rooms to clear, too private, too redolent of stale dreams. But this den, with its uncluttered desk at its center, gives him the creeps. Why this outpost of cleanliness? He drops his sandwich as a mousetrap snaps in the living room and his phone plinks out the first bars of You're So Cool, signaling a text from Tina. Hans Zimmer's True Romance theme once seemed appropriate for his wife's calls and texts, but lately has begun to feel overly optimistic. Dentist says B needs braces. Of course she needs braces. Why should the dental work end now? He texts back a zipper face. He loves emoji more than is reasonable for a grown man with a master's degree in English literature. Maybe he should write his doctoral thesis in emoji. Maybe that way he'd finish. Wish you purchased that dental plan. Mine won't cover it. He replies with images of a face with a surgical mask and a pair of pliers. He checks the snap trap. The mouse's split belly reveals a tiny mouse fetus among the guts. Sorry about that. He tosses the whole mouse fetus trap into the industrial garbage bin outside the front door. Beside it is a storage container where he'll put the books. I don't want to see any more of your clients' shit in my house. Do not bring home one more thing unless it's a dental plan. You're So Cool plays again as he's walking back to the kitchen, but there's no new message from Tina. There's a parrot in the kitchen, on the kitchen table, making a hash of his apple. Its body a kaleidoscope of greens and yellows with a patch of blue-gray at its throat, and pivoting, it flashes red tail feathers. It's alive. Bigby warned he might find a dead parrot. The bird rasps and raises its wings and produces another faithful rendition of You're So Cool. A live parrot helps explain the odd noises over the last few days. Beeps, scratches, clicks, the doorbell ringing. How has he not seen the bird before now? It must be starving. As if reading his mind, the bird continues ransacking his lunch. He lunges and saves his meatball sandwich. He records a voice memo on his phone. Protagonist owns pet parrot? His novel in progress features a writer/junk hauler who finds the dead body of his estranged brother in one of the houses he's emptying. The writer's afraid the police will think he murdered his brother given their fraught relationship, so he packs the body into a box and wheels him out of the house on a dolly, then drives out of town to their parents' farm and buries him under the barn. The rest of the plot is worked out in his head, more or less, but he needs a good foundation first. There's no point doing anything unless you're going to do it right, and his first chapter needs to be perfect. Complex character development, meaningful descriptive passages, realistic and propulsive dialogue, strong verbs, proper punctuation. That's where I'll leave it. It kind of, it seems like a lot of stuff happening, but it sets up the rest of the action in the story. A lot of action, or a lot of stuff happening for a story about a man alone in a house with a parrot. But, boop, boop, boop. Thanks, Dee.
There we go. Am I unmuted now?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Theresa. Desire Lines, that's another good title. That is a mind bender of a story. And by the time I finished it, I felt a little like I'd been taking a walk on a Mobius strip. And at the end, I was turned around and looking back at myself. One of the things that I really like about all of these stories is that they give the reader a lot of room to bring her own interpretations and meanings to what's going on the page. And to me, that's one of the marks of a good story. So I enjoyed that about all the stories. In this one, you've got your character, Sean. He's thinking about the dissertation that he never finished. And he says, he thinks, and this time he's going to have another go at the dissertation, and this time he's going to pin meaning to the ground and hold it there, even if it kicks and writhes. And I felt like as a reader, that's what I was working at doing when I was reading that story. It's just delightfully, well, it shows your what I think of as your free range imagination. And the reason I say free range imagination is in one of your stories, another very imaginative story, Crypsis, there's a reference to raising free range children. And I grew up in a small town, and I've been known to tell people that I had a free range childhood. We pretty much wandered where we wanted to. And there were dangers there, but mostly we found our way. And so I was thinking of that idea of free range children where there are dangers there. And then I was thinking about your free range imagination. And it's a loose connection, but I couldn't let go of it. So I want to know, can you talk about your imagination? Do you, are there dangers of it? Do you ever have to call it back from where it's wanting to go?
Yeah, I think so sometimes. I've never, my identity is not, I never thought I was particularly imaginative or creative. So I never really feel that I need to pull it back. I feel I need to push it. However, I think I might be a little bit creative, as it turns out. And I do get ideas from just any old thing. It could be like an image or a glancing at a stranger, or something I read, a word. It really can be anything. And so that can become a bit overwhelming. So knowing where to start or which one to choose can be trying for me. Sometimes I just force two ideas together, and then that's really fun because you have to make them work as a story, and it's a puzzle and a really nice challenge. That kind of thinking suits my ruminative brain. It gives me a healthy outlet for that sort of rumination, which can be bad, but when you're working on a creative puzzle, it's really helpful. Yeah, free range. I'm glad you like that, Leona, because I definitely had that that experience as a child growing up on a farm.
Yeah.
And I personally, I'm lucky in the city. I live on a street with 2 daycares, and and lots of people are looking out for each other on our street. It's just a close block. It has block parties, and
Nice.
so lots of people are looking out their windows and looking out for one another. And so I kind of felt that my child had a bit of a free range childhood herself.
Nice. Nice. I like that idea you mentioned of, taking 2 ideas and forcing them together, and yeah, giving yourself a challenge in making the story work.
That's right. And then it enforces those boundaries that you were mentioning too. And sometimes, of course, boundaries help you be even more creative.
Yes, exactly. It's true. Yeah. It's true. Do you have yet another imaginary place to take us? Do you have another reading?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Ooh, so nice you would ask, Leona. I'll read a third story, and this one is I feel different again, but I don't know. I'm hard on English majors, I realize, in preparing these readings. I am one, so I kind of feel I can do that. This one's called Yes, Mike. You should be department head, said Ashley. Don't let Jason get it. Apply already. Mike said he'd rather eat glass. He leaned against the kitchen counter in the break room, sipping coffee they'd helped themselves to, even though they didn't pay into coffee club. Jason organized coffee club, and everyone knew the department head position was his to lose. When you eat glass, you bleed out of your ears, Ashley adjusted the scrunchie at the top of her head. I saw it on Oz. Have you seen Oz? Mike had watched the whole series a few months ago during a television binge after Samantha moved out. He couldn't remember the glass scene amid the constant, vivid prison violence and gray anger of those weeks. He took a breath to ask Ashley which season. It's awesome. Anyway, being department head would be much less painful, I think. She jerked her head back to reposition her glasses. The lenses were the size of tea saucers. Unless you ate glass while you were department head. She created a frame with her index fingers and thumbs and read the imaginary headline. Office rival Brian's glass serves in co-workers chili. You know how you like Tim Hortons chili. But no one would do that to you, Mike, no way. Then he remembered the scene in Oz. Old gangster, blood seeping out of his ears and mouth, stumbling around a grim rec room, stunned and betrayed. Metal chairs scraping and clanging onto the floor as other prisoners watch in horror or triumph or schadenfreude. Do I need to watch my back? Asked Ashley. Please, she said, swatting away the question. If anyone should watch his back, it's Jason. Just kidding. I mean, everyone in admissions hates him. Even the students hate him, but not you. We just really think you have some good ideas. You're really great at your job and you have such nice hair. We all think so. Save us from Jason. She whisper chanted, do it, do it. Talk to Rollins. Roland's admin assistant, Janet, walked into the staff room, opened the fridge, and removed a jar of pork rinds. "Hi, Janet," said Ashley. "Still on the keto? I wish I had your willpower. I tried keto once. 2 hours in, I swear to you, I ate a Mars bar, even though I hate them, and a bag of cheesies, which, okay, I love. Who doesn't?" Janet backed out of the staff room. "It takes self-control." "You bet, Janet. Thanks for the pep talk." "Oh, God, what is that smell?" Ashley whispered. "Was that Janet?" The stench of sour milk squatted in the air, and Mike pointed at the fridge. They grimaced at each other. Neither suggested cleaning it. Mike returned to his cubicle, jangly with caffeine, and picturing Ashley dressed in prison drab, then prison orange, sans scrunchie and glasses, scrunchie having been confiscated as a potential noose, and glasses punched off her face by a fellow inmate on day one. She looked kind of sexy. Then he started to feel #MeToo I objectify about the part where he's a prison guard with blue collar and billy club. Maybe he should apply for the department head position. His gut said no, and his head too. The stipend was small, the increased workload significant, the respect gained minimal. They called the soon-to-be retired incumbent boss of the staplers behind her back. But his gut and head always said no. That was his problem, according to Samantha, who described him as a no person. When he asked what that was, she said, the opposite of a yes person. Was Sam right? Was he a no person? Did he have nice hair? Was he the only one who could displace the reviled Jason? He spent the rest of the morning following up with the perennially stupid and hopeful prospective students. "I'm sorry you failed physics and calculus, but you kind of need them for engineering. Have you considered the humanities? I have an English degree. And look where I am now." Had Samantha meant he should be more ambitious? Shortly before she left, she'd asked where he saw himself in 10 years. "With you," he'd answered with conviction. And when her head tipped to the left and her eyes narrowed, he added, "And our babies?" Wrong answer. Hard on English majors, yes. Well, I am.
Thanks for that, Theresa. I love a good skewering of office life. So and I enjoy satire. Within the frame of satire, though, that story also deals with very serious things like self-doubt. And it's called Yes, Mike. And I'm not quite sure how to say that when I'm talking about the title, because when I first saw the title, I read it as if it had a comma. Yes, Mike. And you don't have to get very far into the story before you realize that it means something else. It means, yes, Mike, as opposed to no, Mike, the no man or the yes man. And I like the way the story deals with that. It makes me think about titles and readers' reactions to titles, and again brings up the title of the book for me, Only If We're Caught. Because a similar thing happened to me when I saw the title of the book, because I was thinking of Only If We're Caught in the sense that we used to think of it in childhood or, even adolescence, where it's only wrong if you get caught. You're trying to get away with something. And then it was delightful when I came across it in the text itself, and it kind of upended my expectation of what that meant. So can you talk a little bit about titles and what they do for a story and for a book, and how you came across the title for this collection?
The friends in my writing group will know I'm notoriously bad at titles. But I work because of that, because I'm very bad at it. I work really hard to do it right. The title of the book came after lots of suggestions that I had. I proposed all kinds of titles. I really liked Desire Lines as a title for this collection, but I took a little informal poll with my smart friends and family, and many of them didn't know what the concept meant. And I thought that, abstract concepts are not necessarily the best or most inviting titles of books, though I love it. And I think it works super, thematically. Desire lines are those little, it's a concept in landscape architecture where, for example, in parks, when you see the beaten path made by people because they go just where exactly they want to go rather than taking the paved paths. Anyway, that's a desire line. It's what people do naturally, and it breaks the rules a little bit, and it's a solution to a problem. The problem being the path is too long. Anyway, that one failed for a few reasons, but I really liked it thematically, and I thought the phrase "only if we're caught" it does show up in the story Crypsis, and it's quite literal there, isn't it, Leona? It's how do I explain it? It comes from a jackrabbit. It's the narrative voice is a jackrabbit, or the character is putting on this narrative voice of the jackrabbit. Anyway, and it's quite literal there, but I thought it worked in the similar way as the concept desire lines. So people making up their own rules or creating solutions to problems, kind of in isolation, yeah, a little bit rule breaking too. I thought it worked thematically, but yeah, the titles don't come very easily to me, Leona. I took a poll then. I thought of this one, and then I asked my writing group friends, and this one won hands down. So.
Well, I can see why you were attracted to desire lines thematically, especially after the way you've explained it. But I do think "Only If We're Caught" is a genius title that makes people reach for the book, because it wakes up an idea in people's minds, and it seems to go with some of the sensibilities that are evident in the book. So yeah. Well, I have a lot of other questions I would love to ask you, but we do have some in the Q&A box from people who have tuned in to listen to this. And so I would like to have a look at those. I haven't read them, so I'll just read the first one off the screen to you. This is from Joan Soggy. Theresa, I wonder where you get your story ideas. A character you know, an incident you observe. These all have question marks after them. A dream, something or someone you just glimpse in passing.
Yes, Joan, all those things. It's a good list, actually. Yes, of course, people I know make it into my stories. Not very literally very often, but of course, people influence me. That's just the way it is. Sorry. Try not to steal their stories, but anyway. Let's see, incident you observe, absolutely. I wonder if I can think of one in this collection. I have a story with, it's called Enforcer, and it's set in a small town, and it's about a hockey enforcer and his sister. And what started that story was my father-in-law is a musician, and we were at a small town dance, and I saw this. It's great people watching at these places, right? And I saw this guy who was wearing a really baggy suit and a terrible tie and cowboy boots, and he had a tooth missing, and he looked super rough, but he looked like he was really trying to dress up and have a fresh start. So I made up a whole story about this person I never talked to and have no idea about him at all. Anyway, yes, a dream. Yes, I have a story I want to write about a dream, but I have to work on that one some more. Dreams, you can't just retell dreams. I don't think, in my opinion, unless I guess you could do some sort of surrealist tale, but anyway, I don't think that would be the way I'd go. But I could see dreams kickstarting stories for sure. Does that answer the question?
That's a good answer. Yeah, gives us a lot more insight into how the process works for you.
Yeah.
D. Hobsbawm Smith says, "Hi, Theresa, congratulations. Can you please talk about your writing group and the role it has played in your work?" Good question.
Yeah, I can't. For me, having a writing group was just the most important thing for getting me started writing. For one thing, I got invited into a writing group, and a good friend of mine kind of made me. She has a forceful personality, and she, I would say, made me join. And then that was good because sometimes I need a little bit of a kick in the pants. And my writing group has kind of morphed over time, and I have kind of two different writing groups, and they look a little bit different. My one little tiny writing group that we meet every Saturday at City Perks. They are we're at a point now where we encourage each other and cheer each other on. And it's more, we do read each other's work as well and comment on it, but mostly it's the moral support. And then I have another writing group that came out of the class I took with the short story writing class I took with Guy Vanderhaeg. And it was such a really great class and great students in it. And a few of us still meet and talk about writing. Yeah, super important.
Yeah. Deadlines and moral support, right?
Yeah.
So Dave Margocious asks, who are your writing heroines and heroes?
Guy Vanderhaeg he's a great writer, and he's one of my heroes. But George Saunders is probably my favorite writer of all time. One of the stories in this collection, I wanted to write a story like George Saunders' Victory Lap. I don't know if anyone's familiar.
Oh yeah.
It's just the best. Like, it's the best story. It's so good. And mine has turned out nothing like it because, of course, I'm not George Saunders, but he's probably the tippity top for me. I just discovered Kevin Barry from.
Oh yeah.
Have you read any Kevin Barry? He's fantastic.
Oh, Night Boat to Tangiers. Is that Kevin Barry? No.
Yeah, and I haven't read his novels. I've read the collections of short stories, and oh man, he is just fantastic. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Alice Munro. I mean, there's some obvious ones too. Alice Munro and Margaret Atwood are also great heroes, I would say. Yep, writing heroes.
Okay, good. Di Brandt says, are you mostly an urban writer or a small town or country writer?
All three, Di. Oh, my sensibility probably is country. Those formative experiences. So even if my characters are quite urban, I always imagine them growing up in a rural area. Or that's the sensibility I bring to it. So there's a story about a woman who climbs Everest and has a midlife crisis on Everest. And in my mind, I'd never say it anywhere, but in my mind, she was from a farm originally. Many of us moved to the city.
Maybe that's why I identified so much with so many of the people in these stories.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's see, we have Jim Drake. What is your process when you actually write? Not a small question.
Jim, I sit down in my chair early in the morning, and that's when I write. Usually it's early in the morning. I'm not experienced enough to have one of those amazing, you read about Hemingway, I think he would stop in the middle of a sentence or a paragraph, and he knew exactly where he was going the next day. And so he could start just tear into it the next day. I don't have anything concrete like that. I usually read over what I'm working on, so it's a bit iterative at the beginning, but it gets you into the mood. I guess that would be my process, Jim.
Okay, we've got time for a few more. The questions are flying in here. People are really have a lot to that they want to talk about. Vanessa Mantell, we always learn about ourselves as we work and become more complex writers. You mentioned a creative puzzle. What was the largest, no, sorry, just a sec. What was the biggest puzzle you unlocked about yourself throughout your writing processes that was a surprise to you?
Vanessa, what a personal question. Oh, gee, man, that's a big question.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, I guess writing, like I said, I never saw myself, I never considered myself a creative person. But I think when I started writing, I realized I might be. And so I brought that new identity to my workplace and started to see the way I worked at the library as being creative in some ways too. So I guess that maybe is what I learned, Vanessa.
That's lovely, a lovely way to think about that, Theresa. Yeah. Trina St. John. Hi, Theresa, congratulations. I'm wondering how you discovered that you like the form of short stories. Good question. And whether you'd like to write in other forms one day, such as novels or poetry.
Hi, Trina. I love short stories, so that's how I discovered the form. I just love reading them myself. I think they're like, they can have all the emotions and power of a novel, but packed into a little tiny package. And I just love them so much. Sometimes I find, because I love them so much, sometimes I find novels bulky and why are you going on so much? But I also love novels too. And yeah, I'd like to try a novel sometime. Poetry, I don't think I would try. I just don't know. I don't think that's me, unfortunately. Poets are the coolest, but that's not me.
We have a couple of more, and I think we can get to them as we end off here. Alice Kuiper says, congrats on the gorgeous book. What are you working on now?
Alice, I have three stories in various forms of completion. So I have a really ugly first draft of one that I wanna get it to a good place by the end of October. That's my goal. And I have two more that I'm a little bit stuck on, but I have faith that I will find my way through those. And then I have an idea for a novel, but I don't know. That seems overwhelming.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, one more question here in the question box. Noelle Chorney, where in your life do you think you took on the I'm not creative identity? And when did you begin to shed that?
Well, personal again. I think I don't know. When I was little, I'm not a good drawer, or like I'm not good with visual crafts, with crafts and things like that. And so when we were asked to draw in class, I would always copy my friend Kathy's work. And so I think it was formed quite early. And when these things happen, then you kind of just take it on. And so I think that only started changing quite recently, honestly, that conception of myself. Good thing you keep learning, hey?
I didn't catch that very last sentence, Theresa.
Good thing we keep learning.
Yes, yes. Michelle Gilka, do you find the writing author community in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon supportive?
Absolutely, extremely supportive. Yes, and I've been helped by all sorts of, just encouraged and supported in all sorts of ways by local writers. It helps working in a library too. I get to meet lots of people that way. So that was good. And I helped with the writer in residence program there. So I've met lots of people that way. And then informal ways, the Saskatchewan Writers Guild is really amazing. They have lots of good, like writing group grants, for example, and writing workshops and all that. So yes, very supportive.
And you were part of the mentorship program at one point, weren't you, from the Guild? And
yeah. That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Katie Edwards is asking, how do you find the energy to write after working all week?
Well, Katie, it's the mornings. I can't write after in the evenings. Some people do have that vigor after a day of work, but I don't. So I find it, I have good creative energy in the morning. So that's when I do it. And of course, I'm not uniformly productive at all times. So there's that too.
I really admire people who can hold down a full-time job and produce as much creative work as you have. So congratulations on that.
Okay.
That brings us to the end of the questions in the box. Thank you, everybody, for all those good questions. It really helps the conversation roll along when people have lots that they want to hear, and there's great spontaneity in your answers, Theresa. Made you think too.
Yeah, I wish I could redo the tone one, Leona, from the beginning.
All right, here's Rowan again. Did you have some wrap up, Rowan?
Yeah, I'll pop in here. Of course, to say thank you to you both for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so thanks, Leona Theis, for guest hosting tonight. It's a pleasure to have you. And obviously, thank you to Theressa Slind for launching Only If We're Caught here tonight. And just a quick shout out to June and Carolyn at Thistledown for getting us some extra books today. So if you do place an order for Only If We're Caught and it is sold out, it's because Theressa is very popular and we need more books stat. So we've got more on the way and we will get your order to you as soon as possible. And of course, you can purchase a copy of Only If We're Caught online at mcnallyrobinson.com, or you can give the store a call or just pop by. And yeah, we appreciate your support so much and look forward to being able to safely host events in person again. But until then, please keep an eye on our coming events page to find out more about our virtual event offerings. Maybe I'll pass it quickly back to you, Theresa, if you had anything else that you wanted to wrap up with.
Oh, no, just thank you everyone for coming and for being such great friends and family and supporters and readers. Oh man, I love readers so much.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, tonight, and take care. Stay safe. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Thank you, Leona.
Thanks, Theresa. Bye-bye.